Matthew Dupree. I'm the founder and CEO of Edgegap, and today we'll be talking about how to build a plane while it's in the air and you're flying it. I come from the software development industry, 20 plus years, and I'm specialized in fast games and applications deployment. As you mentioned earlier, Vlad, I'm CEO and founder of Edgegap. We're a software company who's providing back-end infrastructure services for game studios. I've worked with hundreds of studios, from one-man army to AAAs with tens of thousands of employees. And in terms of building a plane while flying it, I've been a pilot myself since I'm 16 years old. So never had to build a plane while flying it, but I do know how to fly a plane, that's for sure. So let's talk about hyper casual games. So you probably thought to yourself as a game developer, hey, this seems like an easy way in, right? I'm going to spend a couple of weeks putting together one of those tap slicing game, and I'll be good to go, right? I mean, easy peasy, just a few things together, and we're good to go. What are if we look at the core ingredients required to build an hyper casual games, these are the following ones. So you need a simple mechanics. Typically, you're going to leverage a minimalistic design. You definitely need addictive gameplay, something that's repetitive, easy to grasp, and make you feel good. The game is made for short sessions between 3 to 5 minutes. There's no tutorials, no fluff, no complexity around it, no login, and a little bit of ASMR around that, and boom, your game is good to go, right? You've probably tried that down the road and spent 3 months banging the keyboard, putting together those good arts, and at the end, you kind of launched the game and you were not getting the success you were hoping for. You probably thought to yourself, like, wasn't it supposed to be easy? What have I missed? Well, let me ask you a few questions. So, do you know what your players want? Do you understand what they were doing in the game? Was your concept original, or was it a maze runner out of the 10,000 out there already in iOS and Apple Store and Android Store? Did you felt in love with your concept? And now I'm sure that a lot of you are like, if you don't like what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing it. But really, were you open to question yourselves about what you were building? It turns out that making hyper casual games and making games in general is really like building a startup. The main solution is to fail very quickly and as often as possible. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell is he talking about? Fail? Like, should I fail? Yes, you should fail. There are 4 main elements to an hyper casual game success. And let me tell you what those 4 main elements are. The first one is about the players. You need to know your players. You need to collect as much data as possible from within the game, and not only collect that data, but also understand that data. What's happening behind the scene? Is there any delay within the mechanics? And after that, you need to get feedback from the players themselves. Are they happy about the game? Do they like a certain aspect better than another? And when I mean get feedback, not feedback from your friends and families, because they're always going to tell you that what you're building is great, right? And you need to be honest and open about the feedback. Listen about the feedback and understand it, and don't hide behind lies or your dream. Right? If you've only built one level of a given game, be honest about it. Where the players who are testing the game say, okay, this is where we're heading toward, and we're changing, adapting. Stick with us, and be open about it. The second element is to fail multiple times. So question yourself, am I doing what's right, or am I doing what I want to do? Am I doing what's right and what's working, or am I just trying to please myself about the whole thing. Don't fall in love with your game. Don't fall in love with the concept. You should definitely like what you're doing, but don't believe that you have the source of truth. And test as many permutations as possible, A/B testing, but also A, B, C, D. Try different mechanics in different parts of the world. Try different colors, different vibes, just to see what's working and what's not. Simplicity does not equal basic. This is really important. So yes, you got to be different. You got to be original. Again, another maze runner, another slicing or tapping game can work, but really being different is probably going to give you a better edge. Build arts for the eyes, but also arts for the brains. Simple mechanic does not equal to basic. So the experience is about a whole. The arts, the mechanics, but also behaviorals, the progression that you're going to implement. At what point within the game advertisements are showing up, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, I believe is one of the very, if not most important one, is to go very fast. Automate as much as possible in your game development cycle, not just from a build perspective, and we'll talk about that in the next few minutes. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Try to use the tools that are out there, the libraries that are out there, the companies like Edgegap who can help you build the surrounding of your game so that you as a game developer can spend your time making a good game, making good arts, writing, tweaking the code of the game. Don't seek perfection. Don't seek perfection. I know that a lot of you are proud about the work that you're doing, and that's perfect. But even if it's not final and you're not completely satisfied, go out there, put yourself in danger and try to test what's working and what's not. So don't seek perfection. Launch ASAP. This is really key. I could not put more emphasis to that. At least with your community, at least with the folks who are looking forward for your game. They're going to thrive with what you're putting out there, and they're going to give you feedback. About your game, if you're looking for retention, which we all are, a little level of deepness definitely doesn't hurt, right? If the game is too simple and it's very, very repetitive and you never scratch the surface, you're going to have a pretty high churn, and the people playing your game won't play the game for a long time. That's why some subtle progression will help your retention and reduce churn. So I'm sure you've all heard that, and you may have heard that before, and you like the concept, but how do you apply those concepts as a developer? How do you take these high-level things and get them to your reality as someone who's banging the keyboard, right? You may have seen that before. This is not new. So the Devops Cycle, it's all about getting the feedback, right? So the Devops Cycle goes as follows. So it starts in the middle with the plan. You're coding your game, you're drawing arts, making arts. You're putting all of these things together to build your game. You do some testing yourself, some QA, and then you release the game for people to enjoy, at which point it gets deployed in the wilds, and you operate the game, you monitor what's going on, and what comes out of the monitoring gets feedback in the plan. So you can restart that loop. Right? Between the deployment and operation is typically where you're going to get the most useful feedback from the players. This is where they're going to tell you, even without, not necessarily with words, just by how they behave in the game. This is where you're going to see like, all right, I'm losing a lot of my players at this point in time. Maybe because my mechanic is too slow. Maybe they don't like a certain aspect of the game and so on. This is where you get the most useful feedback. So talking about that loop, how long do you typically need to execute the loop? Because we've been talking about building the plane as we fly it, right? Going very quickly and taking that feedback, failing and restarting again. So that loop is key in this whole process. How quickly can you execute the loop? Can you do it in minutes, in hours, in days? Maybe weeks, months, and if it's years, you probably need to look for a different job, I'd say. But honestly, most of the studios we work with typically stop at release, and they're calling it, oh, that's the end of the cycle. Oh, we have a nightly build, and we've released this new load. And as in the game isn't necessarily pushed in production. It's just put together in a way where someone could play. Sometimes a lot of those nightly release are buggy. They haven't been really tested besides by the standardized unit testing done in your build environment. So you're not really doing the whole loop. You're stopping at release. At least that's what we've seen most of the time. So how do you make this loop go faster? How do you make this so that we can get the feedback quicker? The solution is to automate. You need to automate everything because as we've seen in Terminator's movie, the robots are faster than humans. The only thing is they may not be able to think, as we've seen with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So let's automate almost everything, I guess. Looking at the Devops cycle and building a game, let's split elements between what we can update and what we need a human for. On the human side, we need humans to plan for what we're going to do, of course, write the code, draw the arts, build the arts, and provide feedback. Right? I've never seen a computer tells me whether something is fun or not. So these three elements are pretty hard to automate. On the right side, though, computers can do a whole bunch of stuff. They can build what's going to be out there, test what's going to be out there, release, deploy, operate, and monitors what's going on, so that human can take that output and start planning again, tweaking the game, and provide the feedback for the developers. So let's look at the right side, which were the automated portion done by the computers. Now, I'm sure that all of you probably have some source code management software, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, and you use the Atlassian suites or something like that to build your game, to track what's going on, to work with your colleagues and merge the different branches and get a functioning application, a functioning game. Where it gets sidetracked is most likely after release, when times come to put it in the player's hands and get to operates and understands and get that feedback. Most of the studios we've seen typically have, if not one person full time, at least someone who's half of the time, they're going to have to manage servers and tools, virtual machines, and create a bunch of custom script to try to put all of these things together, and that's kind of half-baked. And that's why they're unable to release very quickly, because someone has to stop doing what they're doing, go out there and try to mishmash a few things, and we typically see a release a month or a release every few weeks, which is not very quick. But how can we make a developer reach the players through a simple commit, through a simple button, and go from the developers to the humans providing the feedback? It's all about bridging the gap, really. So you have to automate the deployment and the management of your whole cycles. Forget about the clouds, forget about live ops, DevOps. You can connect your IDE and your CI/CD straight to an automated network so that release can be pushed every 30 seconds if you want. The potential solutions out there are typically bare metals, virtual machines, some sort of containers that someone within your team will manage with Kubernetes and serverless. It's really not scalable. So what's being released as of 2 years ago is something called Application Delivery Network. Now, what an ADN is the next generation of CDN. And for those familiar with the CDNs, Content Delivery Network, that's used to provide assets and static images or your Netflix content. So An ADN is allowing you to run any type of applications, any kind of release that you're going to do with your games everywhere in the world. It gives the backend services for your game super low latency. It's a zero effort to maintain and manage, so it's fully autonomous. The system, the provider, scales automatically along with the amount of traffic that you got. You typically pay per usage, so the more traffic, the more revenue, the more money you're going to have to spend. But if you have less traffic for during a certain period, or if your game is not popular, then the cost is also in link with that. All of the vendors out there doing those kind of services are technology agnostic. So they use standardized container images. I'm sure that you may be familiar with Docker, for example. There's a standard out there. So from a developer's perspective, there's no commitment. You don't need to sign a multi-month contract and give a few $1,000s per month. You just build your toy, make it good, make your game good, make your components good. And if you're not happy by a certain provider, you can just take your stuff and go elsewhere with a minimum amount of effort. Those networks are highly secured, and typically they support any network protocols. At least most of them do. Now, how do we use an ADN for an hyper-casual games? The studios, the customers that we have been using ADN for to store data collection, to analyze those data points and try to understand what's going on, track the players' behaviors and the cheaters. A lot of the cheating are prevented by just collecting the data points. In-game currencies or slash achievements slash players progression. Advertising, you probably want to work with a third party providing advertisements, but you may want to track what's going on from your perspective in terms of advertisements. And contents, assets management, you're pushing more content. You want the game to evolve along with the player base. So you need to keep pushing more assets. And in some cases, we've even seen basic multiplayer behaviors for ultra hyper casual games, and those mechanics will call for some basic elements. So who is Edgegap? Edgegap is a number one in the ADN's market. We're a one-stop shop for everything that's gaming backend services. Our pricing is all inclusive. It's very easy to budget and forecast from a development's perspective. We support every game genres, including hyper casual games, and every studio sizes. We have, again, one-man army and AAA size studios. It's 100% turnkey solutions, and there's no complex learning curve, or you're not going to integrating with the platform and with our services typically takes minutes, let alone days or weeks. If we compare Edgegap to the major players out there, AWS App Runner or GCP, Google Cloud Run, we have more locations than what they do because we leverage 12 providers around the world. So that allows us to provide lower latency. We also support more protocols. We support every protocol out there, including UDP, which is not supported by the public clouds today for their ADN. And last but not least, we can deploy components within 2 to 3 seconds, which is very important as your game scales up because we can scale unlimitedly. Whereas the public cloud will typically use or require between 45 to 90 seconds before they can start one of your applications. So how can we help you? We can help you with anything that's backend services. So we're allowing you to focus on your games and the mechanics and the arts, and let everything else around it that can support your game and leave it up to Edgegap. Let me give you a quick case study from one of our customers. They're not an hyper casual game. They are building a web-based platform. The studio is based out of Sweden. It's called studyiberworld. Some of the mechanics can be seen as simple, so it makes it easy to relate. This is a very, very nimble software development team. They're quick at putting out their new version of their games. So they're adding new feature for their players and the creators that are building on their platform daily. they're able to fix bugs in minutes just by automating the whole process. So as we've seen earlier, they're building the plane as it flies, so they're able to automate and crash quickly, but hopefully succeed also along the way. They do listen to their player-based community, and they have beta players, so they're taking that feedback on a daily basis and feed it back in the development cycle so that they can push more loads. So every day, players will have a new release, not just built within their development environment, but for the players, and they can also deploy fixes very quickly within minutes. They're going to release their iOS and Android client. Actually, to start rolling it in the market today, so check it out. I'm sure that, as we've seen, you may have seen a press release about it from iberworld. So in summary, to succeed with your hyper-casual games, there are 4 main points, or 5 really. So data is king, as we discussed. You need to fail a lot. Don't be afraid of that. Originality and creativity is key. You need to automate as much as you can and be very, very quick, because a lot of iterations will allow you to get it right at some point. Otherwise, you're going to think that you're going to succeed until nobody tells you that you failed. I'm Matthew Dupree. I'm the CEO in Edgegap. I'm going to open up for questions, and if you drop us an email, the 51st will get free swag from my team. So check it out.
Thank you very much. It's very useful. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to answer the questions, but I invite you to answer all of the questions in chat. And for now, we